Welcome to another episode of OG55. I got the Italiano with me today. Today we are talking all about legendary Imagineer Kim Irvine. She is retiring from the Walt Disney Company. We're going to talk about that, the ramifications. We're also going to speculate a little bit on this. What is going on with this decision for her to step down? We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down up next on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. Today, we are talking about Kim Irvine. She is stepping down from her role at Imagineering. We're going to talk about it. But before we do, George, welcome back on the show, brother. And thank you for joining. Where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. And it's always a great time being back on Orange Grove 55. Loving these in-depth conversations with you. And yeah, if you'd like to find me on social media, well, first off, you can find me right here on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And you could also find me on my own YouTube channel, Citrico Central, sister channel to Orange Grove 55, where we dive into a lot of the in-park vlogging at Disneyland, Universal, Disney Cruise Line, all that good jazz. And you could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano and Citrico Central.
There he is. And congratulations, George. I think you just hit 300.
Yeah, just actually I hit 300. And at the time that I did my 300 live, I'm already up to 311. So
there he is. There he is. Congratulations, 311. You're making moves, man. Making CEO moves. CEO moves. Let's get this man to the next. I think the next big milestone would be like what, like 5 honey?
5 honey. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Well, let's dive into the topic at hand. We got Miss Kim Irvine, and this is courtesy of our friends over at Mice Chat. Really good folks over there. This is Dusty Sage, but I've been singing the praises of Mr. Andy Castro, who does the Dateline Disneyland stuff, and he does amazing photography, the best in our community, hands down. Dusty has been a member of the community for a very, very long time, along with the late great Mr. Al Lutz. So we have a lot of respect for the Mice Chat crew here at OG55. But it says here, Kim's goodbye. The winds of change are blowing through Disneyland, some sentimental, some structural, a few downright strange. This week, we say a heartfelt goodbye to one of Disney's most beloved Imagineers. Okay, so it says here, after a lifetime spent shaping and often fighting to preserve the heart and soul of Disneyland, Imagineer Kim Irvine is retiring. She was practically born into Imagineering. Her mother, Leota Toombs, which I always found that awesome, with Leota's connection to the Haunted Mansion, and her last name is Toombs.
I know. It's like fit perfectly. It was like destined by fate.
It was destined. Absolutely incredible. Was Madame Leota in the Haunted Mansion, and her father-in-law, Dick Irvine, was Walt Disney's right-hand man and the first president of Walt Disney Imagineering. With a legacy like that, it's no surprise Kim became the keeper of Disneyland's flame. And there's a picture of lovely Kim, and says here that we hope Kim won't remain silent in retirement. With no corporate overlords left to answer to, she may finally be free to speak her mind about the direction the parks are headed. A little pointed prodding from a seasoned pro can make all the difference, even if it won't stop the incoming invasion of blue aliens. Oh, that's interesting. That's a whole can of worms. Now I want to dive into that. Well, let's dive into that first, actually. Before we dive into Kim, even if it won't stop the oncoming invasion of blue aliens. Now, Dusty here is heavily implying that he doesn't really want Avatar coming to, I'm assuming, DCA. Is that the impression you're getting with that?
That's the impression I'm getting, but I also got the impression that maybe Kim doesn't want either. Now, even though she usually works, heavily in Disneyland Park, not so much with DCA, but as we always say here on Orange Grove 55, we always want to withhold DCA to still have that standard that Disneyland has.
Right.
You say many times, Disneyland excuse me, DCA is literally one step away from the original OG greatest theme park that ever was built. So you have to keep, its standards up with it, and you can't just look at it and kind of say, okay, well, let's just see DCA as DCA, but Disneyland's much better. Like, even though Disneyland is the crown jewel of the resort, but you still have to show respect to DCA. And I'm wondering that if Kim Irvine had that same mindset, that she's not really
on board
with that.
And I don't know why. Here's the thing. I have my questions about Pandora going into DCA. And Dusty, if you ever come across this video, you are welcome to come on the show, because I would love to talk shop with you. We would both love to
have Dusty on here would be awesome. I met him several times. One of the nicest guys ever. Really
nice dude. He knows my sister, and he's always been a total sweetheart to my sister, which I appreciate, and I love that about Dusty. But Dusty, when it comes to Pandora coming to DCA, I have a lot of questions too, right? How does that fit into California? How does it even fit into Hollywood? How are you going to go down Hollywood Boulevard and bank a left, and now you're on this alien planet? So believe me, we definitely have a lot of questions here at OG55 in regards to Pandora coming to DCA, right? But here's the thing, with my concerns and my questions, I still feel, look, Pandora is one of Imagineering's greatest feats, in my opinion. What they accomplished out there in Animal Kingdom is seriously incredible. Absolutely incredible. And we are getting a version of that here in California, and not just California. We're getting a version of that in DCA. And like you were saying, George, I've said it many times on many videos, let's have the same care for DCA that we do Disneyland. I get it. It's never going to be Disneyland. It doesn't have the Walt Disney touch and all that. But
it shouldn't be Disneyland.
But
each park should have its own identity.
Yes, it have its own identity, and absolutely. But and it will never meet the iconic status of a Disneyland. But can we try to get it as close as possible? Why would any fan, and I'm not directing this at Dusty, I want to make that very, very clear, but why would anybody not want them to go balls out, crazy ambition for DCA? I mean, this park literally sits feet away from the park that Walt built, right? So for me, yes, we do have concerns about Pandora. We do have concerns about how it ties into Hollywood, how it ties into the bigger California theme. But I mean, it's a very immersive land, and it would definitely boost DCA and make it feel like more like a world-class destination. I mean, if it was up to me, we'd be bulldozing Pixar Pier and putting it there. But I know a lot of fans don't want that. I know a lot of kids like to take pictures in front of the Mickey Ferris wheel and post them on the gram. You know what I'm saying? On the gram, on the Instagram. And I get that. It's all Instagrammable stuff, and I get that. And I respect that. Normies love Pixar Pier. If it was up to OG, though, it would be gone. But why? We got to get DCA up to snuff here. We got to get DCA to a point where it's like as close to Disneyland as possible. And I think Pandora is one of those lands where it really does move the needle. Again, with all the issues and concerns aside, and there are issues and concerns for sure, it's still a magnificent land. And it's also a land that here in California, we're going to have the fortune of actually having it every single night, unlike Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom, dude, you can't get nighttime Pandora in Animal Kingdom anymore. Like, the park closes at like 6 o'clock. Here in California, we're gonna get it every night. So I think it's a fair trade-off. And what are we losing? We're losing Monsters Inc. You mean the retheme to Superstar Limo? I mean, come on. It was a weak, cheap retheme, a cute dark ride for sure, but is it worth keeping that instead of having Pandora? No.
It did its job at the time, like where it needed it the most, because they didn't have nothing really set to replace Hollywoodland. The Hyperion Theater was still open. They were doing the shows of Aladdin and Frozen, and then shortly after they did Rogers the Musical. So they had no reason to like retheme Hollywoodland right now. Then after, the pandemic and everything, they never brought the Hyperion back. The red car trolley is gone, thanks to me. But there's really no use to keep Hollywoodland. So there's really no use to keep Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue, because it was only there to fill in of an attraction that really was the worst I'm sorry, it was the worst that Disney has ever come up with Superstar Limo, that is.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Hollywood Land as a land in itself is very weak. And the the studio section, which is that the studio section is the part that's going away, which is where Monsters Inc. resides. That studio section, that studio courtyard is the weakest part of the bigger land. So you have a weak Hollywood Land, and the part they're removing is the weakest element of the weak land.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I mean, I'm sorry. And then we're gonna get Pandora on that land, on that spot. You're gonna give me this crazy rock work, the beautiful waterfalls, a Shanghai Pirates of the Caribbean style boat ride, but we're supposed to cry over like losing Monsters Inc. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't really. Hey, look,
I don't have to say this too, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, how is it going to fit in DCA? How is it going to work? And we're even part of that group. We're
100%.
But here's the thing: we were questioning it with Animal Kingdom. I will say, literally, when they made that announcement back in 2011 that Avatar was coming to a Disney park, and not just any Disney park, Animal Kingdom, and I'm thinking, how in the world is this going to work? Like, how are they fitting this into the conservation and the real world scope of what Animal Kingdom is all about? But you know what? It worked. They fit in a fictional storyline that's within the boundaries of Pandora that it ties in with Animal Kingdom. They'll probably do the same thing, but just opposite for however reason with California. It was confirmed that Avatar 4 and 5 will have an Earth presence in the films. So that's a good start there.
I haven't heard that. Where'd you hear that?
I forget who. Someone confirmed to the fact that Avatar 4 and 5 will have Earth present in that film.
Okay, see, I didn't hear that, but that's interesting, George, because a lot of fans are making a lot of assumptions, you know what I'm saying? Because we don't have anything to go on. And that's the problem. Fans don't have anything to go off of. We don't know what the next 3 movies are going to be that this land is based off of. And like you were saying, now we find out that there's an Earth element to these films.
And that would make more sense too, because at D23, they said this land is not just going to represent Way of Water. It's going to represent Way of Water. It's going to represent Fire and Ash and its sequels.
Yes.
That's where it can kind of tie into everything. So we're saying it now. We have the questions because we don't know what Avatar 4 and hell, we don't even know what Fire and Ash is all going to be about.
Right, exactly. And so that's why it's really hard to kind of judge this stuff, because there might be a connection where it's like, oh, okay, I get why they wanted Hollywood Land. After you see the movies, it might make sense. Oh, that's why. Okay, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Or it could be, look, it also could just be that, like, remember when we got the $1 billion reimagining of DCA back in 2012, the final project was Cars Land to open in 2012. And when they opened Cars Land, they rededicated the park. Mm-hmm. They gave it a whole new dedication plaque and everything, and kind of redirected the theme a little bit. It was still California, but it was kind of redirected. It's also possible when Pandora opens at the end of this 5 years, they take Pandora as a kind of a catalyst to sort of rebrand the park again. So we don't even know if it's going to be California in 5 years still. If it's going to be Disney Cinematic Adventure, then it doesn't really matter if there's even an Earth element to it.
And I honestly think that that's going to be, I think that's going to be the route. I really do. Because even if, as I mentioned many times before on both our channels, take Avatar out of the equation. There's only so many stories that you can tell that's already tied into California.
Right.
Once they're done, they're very limited if they really want to keep the California. Now, again, people say like it's a park in California. So you're living out an adventure in California. I don't really see it that way. I don't know if that was Disney's intention, but that's not how I see it. And again,
that's too meta for me.
Yeah, it is. It's too widespread where it's like, okay, well, if you put Pandora, okay, you're living out your adventure in Pandora in California. And it's like, okay, oh, you're living out Zootopia in an adventure in California. It's like, come on, like Disney's much more, they have much more tight of storyline than just being that broad.
Yeah, I don't like that idea. I gotta be honest. A lot of fans do love that idea, though. It's a fan thing that people have kind of like latched onto and have really embraced. It's not for me though. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that, oh well, hey, the park sits in California, so I guess we can just put anything in there. I don't really like that idea. I mean, look, I'm not super particular with the California theme. Some fans go super overboard with it. Like I think San Francisco is perfectly fine.
Oh
Like
yeah.
there's enough California inspiration in there that fits DCA's theme perfectly. That's fine. Even Pixar Pier. Yeah, it's Pixar. So what? It's a pier. That's very California. Even Avengers Campus. Google the Google campus. Image search Google campus in Northern California or Silicon Valley, and it looks a lot like the Avengers campus. It was obviously inspired by the Silicon Valley tech campuses, in California and stuff. So, and even the backstory, I think, to like, the Stark Automotive and all that, it was the backstory even involved California. So I don't even mind Avengers Campus, you know what I'm saying? But to just say like we could just throw anything in DCA because it's a park that sits on California land, I think that's beyond lazy in my opinion. And I think that Disney can do a little better than that. I'd rather them just change the name or just figure something else out. But I don't like the fact that like we're just going to do whatever because it sits on California. It's a California adventure. We're going to throw anything in it because it sits on California land technically.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a cop-out, to be honest. It's very uncreative. It's really un-Disney-like, just to say, oh, we'll call it California. So that way, yeah, whatever we put in here, oh, it's fine because it's on California soil. So, it's a California adventure. I don't know.
Well, it's like saying, okay, we have Fantasyland, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have Fantasyland. So really any movie, I mean, most movies, most content is fantasy. Most of it comes from someone's imagination, someone's head that they wrote. So I guess any franchise fits in Fantasyland because technically everything's a fantasy, unless it's a biography of somebody's life. I guess outside of that, I guess everything fits in Fantasyland, and I don't think most fans would agree with that. I think there's a certain kind of fantasy that belongs.
But again, that's where the mentality is in the fan base because you can't do that at Disneyland.
No.
But it's like DCA. It's like, oh, well, okay. Yeah, that's fine. And that's what circles back. It's like you still have to treat the same way out of the respect of DCA that you would for Disneyland.
Yes, and that's why I love what the Japanese are doing with OLC, with their parks, because they have Disneyland, but then they took their second park as seriously as their first park. Which I don't want
them say is much better than their actual, like they love Disneyland, but people are saying Tokyo Disney Sea is like the greatest Disney theme park that ever exists.
Exactly. So it's like, I want that energy here. Okay, I don't want a half-ass DCA. This park literally sits 6 feet away from Disneyland. The park that Walt Disney built and enjoyed for over a decade. And I'm going to sit here and have like half-ass attempts at DCA, and like it doesn't really matter. It's DCA, just throw it in there. No, And people will argue, well, that's what Disney's done. They just thrown stuff in there, but they really haven't, though. If you really look at what they've added to DCA, it does have that California spin to it. Like the most recent addition was San Francisco. That is heavily inspired by San Francisco. Yes, there's Tokyo and Japan in there as well, but it still pulls from California. The pier, Cars Land, Buena Vista Street. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, it's very California. Yeah, I get it. Cars Land technically takes place in Arizona, but Route 66 and car culture is very California. Those two elements alone warrant its existence in a California park. They did not give up on the California theme. Just because you have IP does not mean it's not California. If you put Mickey Mouse in an astronaut costume, it doesn't mean that he's not space themed. Just because it's Mickey and it's not a real astronaut doesn't mean that that's no longer space themed. Just because you have an IP on the pier and it's Pixar doesn't mean that's no longer a pier. It's still a pier and it still works with California. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So anyway, yeah.
And really quick before and I don't want to digress too much, but I do have to mention, because you mentioned the pier a few times, and it now like really dawned on me when you were like, okay, for me, I would just like kind of like wipe out the pier, kind of rebuild and do like a harbor kind of style. That was always your thing. And now I'm thinking, because now that Coco is going into the pier, it's pretty much a bet that the pier is staying, especially because the location of where Coco is going to go, being that it's actually going behind the Incredicoaster, which is basically the center of the whole entire pier. That obviously they're not going to build something that pristine and that like high end of technology and say, okay, well, we're going to get rid of the pier.
They're not going to get rid of the pier. No, there's way too many normies that love it. And I would be a hypocrite if I were to say get rid of it, because I've said that the normies and the fans have two different perspectives. So the normies love the pier. So I'm a nerd and I'm a diehard Disney person. I don't like it, but at the end of the day, the normies do. So the normies are going to win over, you know? Now there's things they can do to make it better though, obviously, and they should. But yeah, they should. They're not going to get rid of that pier. And from what I understand, the last thing I heard, like just a few years ago, that Mickey Ferris wheel. I'm sorry, I'm not calling it the Pal Around. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm not calling it the Pal Around. But the Mickey Ferris wheel, like just from like a little bit before the pandemic. So I guess it's been a little while, but is one of the most Instagrammed photograph places on Earth. Like literally, like that is one of the biggest spots when it comes to like people being photographed on location and things like that. So it's a huge that's promoting the park. Every time someone does that, takes that picture in front of the Mickey wheel and then post it on social media, whether they're coming from Australia or Japan or Korea, and they post that on their social media, that's promoting DCA. Disney's not going to get rid of that.
No,
there's no way.
Especially of how it also tied into World of Color, especially the first one where it would put the spotlight on Mickey's face and it would say, Walt Disney presents the wonderful world of color. You know, that I mean, like that was like so perfect. And now, you know.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're not getting rid of it. There's no way. But great conversation. But let's dive now into Kim Irvine. It says here that she is retiring. Now, this is interesting because Kim does a lot of Disneyland stuff, right? So she's done the Club 33 reimagining or expansion, really. She's done most recently, I believe she did the merch store, the Madame Leota merch store for Haunted Mansion. I think she did an amazing job with the castle refurb a few years ago before the pandemic. I thought she did a beautiful job with that. She was connected to the treehouse, well, now they're calling it the Adventureland Treehouse, inspired by the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse. So she's done a lot of great work. And she has, and Dusty's right, she has been a real advocate for Disneyland.
And she also was behind, and I know a lot of people had a problem with this at the time, but now they don't, which is completely, I think, ridiculous without giving it a try. But she also was behind the upgrade to It's a Small World, where they incorporated the Disney characters into their own respective culture.
Exactly. And she talked about that on the Imagineering story on Disney Plus, how she was getting like, you know, all kinds of harassment from people because of that, which is absolutely disgusting in my opinion that people would do that. But she has a great body of work. She does. Now look, is it perfect? No. I can go into anyone's body of work, whether it be Tony Baxter, I mean, even Walt Disney, if you want to really be honest. No one's body of work is perfect. You know what I'm saying? Everyone's going to have a bad day at the office. I love Jon Favreau, but do I like the Lion King live action? No, it's dog shit. Let's be honest. Okay. It's horrible. Okay. So
wait. So if we're going to say that, I would say it's more lion shit.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So she has had her off moments, obviously. Everything isn't going to be perfect, but I think overall, I think Dusty's right. I think she's really done a good job at, you know, maintaining quality, fighting for that quality. You know, I don't know exactly to what extent she was involved with that Haunted Mansion merch store, the Madame Leota store that they recently opened. That store is a little iffy for me. I love the inside. Even the outside isn't necessarily bad. It's just a little too big, you know, but she got a lot of heat for like the AI artwork inside the store too. It wasn't just the building, it was the AI art as well. So that was controversial. But again, it's like, I feel like anyone that you go through and I can go through Tony Baxter's history and I can find stuff and be like, hey, look at this, look at that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like she was with the company, what, for 50 years. So she's going to have some flaws. You know, she's not a perfect person. 55 years, you know, and she's going to have, you know, some good and some bad in there, you know, no one's, and she also has to, well, yeah, and she has to work within the corporate parameters. It's not all on her. It's not like she doesn't have complete freedom to do whatever she wants. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So some of these bad decisions might not even be her decisions in the first place. But what say you, George?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, whoever, like, you could think of someone as being a creative genius. Walt Disney was one. Jim Henson, another. Howard Ashman, another. But they all had their downtime. You know, they all had, like, in order to be successful, you have to, you know, go through the ups and downs of a roller coaster. And it's the same thing with Kim Irvine. Like, no matter, you know, how much great you think somebody is, you know, we're all human, you know, so it's like, you can't get like down and out by saying, oh, well, this was a flop. Like, how dare they, you know, they're putting their name in through the mud. Well, it's like, doesn't everybody, you know, that's nothing new. And, you know, that's been that way since the peak of dawn of human, you know, but it does make me wonder, was this her decision to retire on her own terms, or if there was something internally that was discussed?
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, that's the question. There's not a whole lot of details in regards to that. And, you know, it's always, you know, like, it's tough, man, because she does a lot of Disneyland stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Well, let's be honest. Like, the next 5 years, it's DCA. It's all DCA, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got Coco, we got Avatar, we got the Eastern Gateway. It's all like outside Avengers. Of Disneyland. And what? Oh yeah, Avengers, exactly. So there's not a whole lot of Disneyland stuff. So now she's an older woman, but she looks great for her age, I will say. You do look great, Kim. But if you're looking at that going, well, the foreseeable future is DCA. Now I'm a Disneyland creator. Like, do I stick around and go into my 80s and wait for Disneyland, or do I retire now and call it a day? Maybe she decided, hey, you know what? It's kind of DCA's time right now. I'm Disneyland. I'll just hang it up now, because it's like right now there's not a whole lot on the Disneyland plate.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, sadly, I mean, I don't know why they don't utilize her in DCA though, unless I'm wrong. I mean, if she's done DCA stuff in the comments, let us know, but I don't think she has.
Unless maybe that's her choice. Maybe they did ask her and she said, I just prefer just to stay over here at Disneyland.
See, but I don't like that either. Kim, I hope that's not what it is, because like I said before, DCA is Disneyland. It sits on the same land as Disney. Like, I don't like that mentality of like, well, it's just DCA. It's not worth my time. Like, I want her to care as much, you know. Yes. And I know you're speculating, so I'm not trying to put words in Kim's mouth. Neither of us are trying to do that. Right. But I don't want that to be the case. I want her to have the same passion for DCA.
Both ways. We don't want that to go either way, whether it was Kim's decision or the company's decision. Either way, if you look at it, again, DCA is getting the short end of the stick because of it, because they're not having someone as great as Kim Irvine to not get the opportunity to say, hey, let her put a little bit of her touch on DCA as she does as Disneyland.
Yeah, I think she'd be great over there. I don't know why I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's some corporate thing. I don't know. But I would love to see what she could do with some DCA stuff.
Oh, go ahead, bro.
Well, I was going to say, and if she has done DCA and we're not aware of it, let us know in the comments. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very curious. It was something that Dusty had mentioned or not Dusty, but I don't know if he wrote the article or whoever wrote the article that was mentioning on Mice Chat that saying, like, if she was to tell her story, like, without being held back by the corporate and everything once she's retired, I'm very curious if she would end up, like, doing an interview or writing a book, if that would be the case, if there was like any kind of like issues with that. Yeah.
And I would imagine any big company, there's going to be some sort of issues or restrictions, you know, like I said, I mean, you know, these companies need to have some control. You can't just let creatives just do whatever they want. Like, you know, you do have to control a little bit, you know, but I've never really heard of her having any issues. Usually you hear some rumblings out there, you know, like I've heard a little bit here and there about Tony Baxter and like other, right. I've never really heard any issues with Kim, but again, I don't know. It's possible she's butt heads with Disney executives that I'm not aware of.
And I think that's why it kind of came as a surprise that she was retiring, because it's like, not that we forgot about her, but it's like, because there's no like drama tied to her, it's like, okay, well, everything's fine in Kim Irvine world. She's fine. She's doing her job. It's all good.
Yeah, she's all good. She's set in her 70s, but she looks like she's in her 50s. I mean, she does look great. She's still very energetic, and it seems like she loves what she does. So that's why I was kind of surprised by the news, But again, it could be anything. I mean, it could be something going on with her personal life that she wants to focus on. 1,000 reasons, But she's an absolute legend, and she has done an amazing. She has had an amazing run. At Disney, with her flaws, even sprinkled in there. I think she's done a lot of great stuff for Disneyland, and so we wish Kim all the love and best, best wishes and success in the future. Absolutely. But George, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, same as you said. For Kim, kudos to you, and thank you so much for doing your contributions to what you've done for Disneyland, also to your mother, who basically has a permanent imprint in Disneyland as well. And even, happy retirement to you whenever that. I don't think that she made the announcement of when her last day is.
I didn't see that.
I'm for sure it'll be fairly soon, but even with you being retired, both you and your mom will still have a significant presence of the work that you have accomplished, and also too in the Haunted Mansion itself, because even after Kim retires, we'll still be able to kind of get to see her during Haunted Holiday, because she stepped in the role of her mother during the holiday season as Leota, Madame Leota.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I do want to address one thing before we go, because people have asked me and they brought it up, and the LA stuff going on right now. Okay. And I've heard like, oh my God, OG, are you okay? I want to make it, I want to address this. And I know some people might get mad at me, but I don't really, honestly, not that I don't care. I mean, I don't want anyone to be mad at me, but I'm going to tell the truth. Okay. There's a lot of spin out there that like everyone in LA were like all hiding in our homes, like hunkered down. And it's like an absolute war zone. That is absolutely not true. This is a small section of the city that is going through this, okay? A small section, okay? And it's getting blown up in the media like it's like everywhere is like LA is just a war zone. It's that is simply not true, okay? So I want to make that very, very clear that we are okay here, and 99% of Angelinos are not affected by what is going on. So I'll make that very clear. And also, one of the things I've said it many times, one of the things I love about living in California is our diversity. And it's something I've always loved about it. And I grew up out here in California. My high school, I went to a Catholic high school. It was all Filipino and Hispanic, right? And I learned a lot from being in that environment. I loved it. I loved learning about Filipino culture, Mexican culture. That was a lot of fun for me, and I appreciated that, and I don't think I would have those opportunities with that, or with even like my ex-girlfriends who were of other nationalities, and if not living in Southern California. The LA area is one of the most diverse areas in the world, if not the most, and I think that makes LA better. That makes LA stronger. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud to live in an area that can say that, So immigration is a huge part of where I live. I love LA, and I call it home, and I will always call it home. And we are not perfect out here in Los Angeles, you know what I'm saying, or in California. We're not perfect. We do have our problems. Obviously, it's not a perfect place to live. But you know what? Nowhere is perfect to live. You move to Tennessee or something, you're gonna have problems over there too. Everywhere it has something. You know what I'm saying? But California has a lot of great stuff, and I'm proud to be called a Californian. Everyone knows me here at OG55. I flaunt my Californian roots like crazy out here, because I'm proud to be a Californian. And I'm proud.
you pull your West Coast card out all the time.
Dude, all the time, bro. You know what I'm saying? You got to pull it out every now and then, you know? But I'm proud to be Californian, despite the fact that we do have some issues. Now, there's a lot of opinions on social media and stuff from people that are not even from California or have never even been to California, you know? And they're talking all this shit about our state and our city, and they don't even know. And if you're from California, yeah, you can say, you know, you could say that. You could be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm a Californian. I lived in LA, and this problem is an issue. We got to fix it. But you never even been to California, and you're gonna talk to us about what we should be doing out here. Come on, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. We are fine. This is a very small portion of the city going through this. This is not just all over Southern California. Everyone's hunkered down, hiding. It's a war zone. You know, the media is making it out to be crazier than it really is. But George, any thoughts on the LA stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's again, even with me, even though I'm not like in the heart of LA, but I'm still part of the LA County. Even though that I do live in Covina, and again, yeah, nothing is going on. It's just like from coming back, it's like just going right back into it. There's like, we're fine. You know, we're able to go outside. We're able to do our daily activities and what have you. We appreciate the concern, but yeah, like it's a lot of the times when you read stuff on social media or you just go to the main media, a lot of times it gets spun off to be much worse than it really is. Not saying that there's no cause of concern.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know,
there's absolutely stuff going on for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. And just know that both of us are highly against violent behavior. You know, violence is never, you know, the cause for anything, but just the scope of what's going on, it's not as big as what it's protained in the media.
Yeah, it's way overblown, and it's being used as a way to kind of, you know, shit on California again, you know. And
I have to say, for someone who now became a West Coaster, see, it was so easy for someone to say, because they're born and raised, they're always going to protect their city. They're always going to protect their state. But especially for me, kind of being a newbie at it, I fell in love with the state of California just by coming out on vacation and visiting and being taken around to the different sites and getting a more broad perspective of like what I've been missing all my life over on the East Coast. So even though that I'm brand new to California, of being a resident, that is, and you know, now, you know, earning my own West Coast card, that I have to say that, you know, I'm even proud to say that, you know, I'm glad that I now live in the state of California, and there's so much to see. There's so much to do. There's so much cultural diversity that honestly, a lot of people shit on the state, but I think a lot of states need to take their P's and Q's from California.
I mean, in some ways, yeah, dude. I mean, you know, like it's, yeah, you're going to have your issues anywhere. And I think California gets a lot of unfair attacks on it. You know
as boring as PA is, you know, there's a lot of issues over there, you know, like no matter where you go.
Yeah, exactly. So just remember.
Yeah. Oh, so y'all ain't gonna let nobody disrespect the West Coast, huh?
You heard the man, dude. You know, we're not letting anyone disrespect the West Coast. You know what I'm saying?
No, whatever Kendrick says goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. George, where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me here on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And you can also find me on my own YouTube channel, Citrico Central, sister channel to Orange Grove 55, covering all the vlogging aspects of Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Universal, Disney Cruise Line, all that good jazz. And you could also find me on my Instagrams under the Disney Italiano and Citrico Central.
There he is. And again, congratulations, George. 311. I had the 11.
Yes, 311.
Yeah, 311. It's better than a 304, though, huh? Yes. 304. No, 311 is perfect. That's awesome, dude. Now the next big one is 500. So everybody, if you haven't already, go ahead and check him out. Citrico Central. Subscribe. Smash that subscribe button. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG55. If you want to talk about the LA stuff, totally cool. Just be respectful. You know what I'm saying? And that's all. If you disagree with some of the stuff that we've said, again, that's fine. We welcome that. But you just be nice, be respectful in the comments about it. We can all have a conversation about it, which is healthy. You know what I'm saying? Healthy disagreement, you know? But that's all we ask. Thanks for watching this episode of OG55. Until the next time, see you later.
I ain't got nothing to say but West Side.
Thank you for watching OG55. If you aren't already, consider becoming a member today.